Welcome to Goldengames, bringing you detailed guides on the latest homebrew and jailbreaking for your favorite consoles: PS3, PS4, PS5, Xbox, and Nintendo. If you're ready to unlock your console's full potential, you're in the right place. So hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into the world of jailbreak. Advanced exploitation of security vulnerabilities on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 consoles. Techniques and developments of Flat_Z. In recent months, the attention of the PlayStation console development community has focused on the innovations of Flat_Z, one of the most well-known developers in the field of reverse engineering. With a deep understanding of PlayStation vulnerabilities, the developer and hacker Flat_Z is working on techniques that could revolutionize the way users interact with the console's operating system. The main focus of Flat_Z is on implementing kernel exploits that can run on newer firmware on the console, including those above version 5.00. Recently, he shared significant advances in exploit stability and speed, describing how different approaches, such as using WebKit, BDJ, and Lua, had varying results. While BDJ has shown lower performance due to its reliance on Java, code written in Lua has been shown to be faster and more stable. One of the most interesting aspects concerns the use of advanced memory management techniques, such as aliasing memory through shared memory objects. This methodology allows them to overcome the mitigations implemented by Sony in their libt, a critical step for exploit success. He also showed how Lua bytecode can be generated in real time, modifying them to trigger memory corruption and change pointers and function arguments. Flat_Z also demonstrated a strong spirit of collaboration, inviting other developers to work together to improve exploitation techniques, encouraging the sharing of information and resources to address common challenges in reverse engineering consoles. Despite the challenges related to Sony's recent security mitigations, Flat_Z remains optimistic. He plans to further test his techniques on newer firmware versions and hopes to pull off a full kernel exploit. Below is a complete list of all types of exploits, attack vectors, mitigations, deployments, and exploitation. 1. Types of exploits and attack vectors. Flat_Z work on exploits that exploit various components of PlayStation consoles. Game vulnerabilities. Exploits within vulnerable games, both in physical, PSN disks, and digital formats. Any vulnerable game can be used to inject unauthorized code, exploiting their weakness to execute arbitrary code. BDJ, BlueRay Disk Java, a Java-based vector that has been exploited to obtain executable code on PlayStation using BlueRay disks. However, Flat_Z don't like BDJ very much because they consider Java to be slower and more unstable than other methods. However, it continues to improve its code to stabilize the execution of exploits through BDJ. WebKit, another attack vector that takes advantage of the WebKit engine used by the PlayStation. However, Flat_Z prefers to avoid WebKit and focuses on other, more efficient methodologies. PS2 emulation. It is also exploring vulnerabilities in the PlayStation 2's emulated mode on PS4 and PS5, which can be exploited to execute and sign code. 2. Mitigations and challenges in recent firmware. Kernel exploit. It is working on kernel exploits for firmware versions below 5.00, but is trying to adapt these exploits to work on newer firmware as well, such as 7.61. However, firmware 3.xx and later introduced mitigations that make it more difficult to exploit kernel vulnerabilities. For example, its HV exploit only works on firmware below 5.00. Memory exploitation. Flat_Z is using a memory aliasing technique to bypass mitigations introduced in newer firmware versions. Basically, it creates a shared memory region that is mapped twice, once for reading and once for writing. This allows it to bypass protections in C library memory management, such as which prevents changes on the current stack.mencp. 3. Implementation and development of exploits. Flat_Z describes various steps for implementing exploits, multi-stage read and write primitives, uses multi-stage read and write primitives, where each stage is faster than the previous one. The final step uses native read and write functions, which have been recorded via ROP, return-oriented programming. This allows it to have faster and more efficient exploits. Return-oriented programming. ROP is a fundamental technique used in security exploits to bypass protections. Flat_Z has developed a ROP that it uses to manage threads, allowing for faster and more secure code executions. Lua scripting and bytecode manipulation. Flat_Z is leveraging Lua to create exploits. Lua is used heavily to handle complex memory operations, including bytecode creation. Use tricks such as memory aliasing and manipulation of Lua's internal structures to gain unauthorized access to memory and manipulate native functions through the ROP. Its Lua code is very customized and optimized to achieve higher performance than WebKit. He is also working on techniques to bypass problems related to Lua's garbage collector handling and memory corruption during string manipulation. This allows for the creation of more robust exploit code, reducing the risk of crashes or bugs during code execution. 4. Memory utilization and system mitigations. Shared memory and ROP stack recovery. One of the main goals of Flat_Z is to ensure that in an exploit environment, ROP code is not broken by memory or stack corruption. To solve these problems, it uses techniques that involve recovering the corrupt stack through the use of aliased memory. This allows you to restore the corrupt ROP stack and continue the execution of exploit code without interruption. Canary protection. Newer versions of firmware have introduced canary protections, a type of memory protection that detects stack overwriting. And Flat_Z has worked to bypass this mitigation by using advanced memory management tricks. 5. Current job status and future prospects. Flat_Z successfully tested exploits on firmware 7.61, managing to achieve arbitrary code execution and kernel memory corruption. It is still trying to optimize the speed of execution of exploits and adapt old techniques to newer firmware. It plans to release a kernel exploit for PlayStation 5 once certain conditions are met, although a recent attempt to exploit the kernel on PS5 ran into a hurdle related to the lack of a kernel information leak. Flat_Z mentions that he wants to bring a save exploit to games he had developed in the past, and that he wants to rewrite the exploit for the HyperVisor HV to adapt it to the latest firmware, such as 4.51. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I really appreciate you taking the time to check out this video. If you enjoyed it and found it helpful, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. And if you know anyone who might be interested in this, feel free to share it with them. It really helps grow our community. Thanks again for all the support, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.